Hello, I'm Snir Vaknin, and I want to start us off with 3 questions. First, what's the best ice cream flavor? Personally, I'm a vanilla fan, but I think we should take a vote. Who here prefers vanilla over chocolate? Raise your hand. Great, put your hand back down. And who here prefers chocolate over vanilla? Great. Second question, who here believes they live in a democracy? Raise your hand. Great. And who here believes that they know enough about Jews or Israel to defend them if they ever needed to? Raise your hand. Great. I want you to keep these last 2 questions in mind for the remainder of my talk. But for now, let's go back to the first question. Imagine I stood here and I kicked out everyone who picked chocolate as the best ice cream flavor. Or if me and all of the vanilla fans were beaten for our choice. Sounds absurd, right? Well, that kind of violence is exactly what happens when democracy vanishes. Democracy, a word rooted in the Greek demos, meaning people, and kratia, meaning power, is a system where the power belongs to us, the people. At its core, democracy guarantees essential rights, like freedom of speech, the right to vote, and equality under the law. It protects minorities, and it gives them the power and the space to make an impact, to hold their leaders accountable without them needing to feel fear of violence against them evoking. But democracy is insanely fragile, as history repeatedly shows us. Consider the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. From its ashes, 15 independent countries emerged, yet of these, only 5 remain democracies today, and the rest slid back into authoritarianism. Or take the Arab Spring, for example, a series of protests across the Middle East and North Africa taking place in 2010 and 2011 that sought democracy and change and instead left nations like Egypt, Libya, and Syria in ruins. Yet, none of the countries that participated in the Arab Spring are today democracies. So why didn't democracy rise? Why did these efforts collapse into authoritarianism? These questions lie at the heart of our understanding of democracy's fragility and its future. I grew up in Colombia, in an Israeli household. That is a fascinating mix. Colombia taught me politeness and subtlety, how to be quiet, how to be kind. Israel taught me chutzpah and boldness, how to go out of my shell, how to make myself known. And I was convinced I knew Israeli culture well. That was until I visited. Simple gestures like thanking cars when crossing the street or apologizing when squeezing past people felt alien there, marking me as an outsider. And I realized that culture isn't just inherited, it's lived and absorbed over time. And democracy works the same way. In authoritarian states, people are taught that power comes through violence, and when democracy is given to such a society, chaos often follows. So, without a shift in mindset and without constant practice in democracy, it can't thrive. Because democracy requires a society that is engaged, active, and informed. Now, I want to bring to mind my second question. Who here believes they live in a democracy? Raise your hand. Great. I want you to take a hard look at what's happening in universities today. According to Hillel International, there were 1,854 anti-Semitic incidents reported across United States universities in the 2023 to 2024 academic school year. At UCLA, Jewish students were beaten with sticks in the halls and were harassed continuously simply for being Jewish. 55% of Jewish students in Ivy League universities hide their support for Israel, and 73% hide the fact that they are Jewish or feel compelled to. Does that sound like a democracy? And this isn't just an American issue. In Amsterdam, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were beaten in the streets after a sports game. Isn't sports supposed to be free of politics? On Parisian campuses, signs were hung on every single building. They read, "Zionists are fascists. We want them out of our campuses." But we live in a democracy, right? Democracy requires a place where we are all free to express ourselves. Freedom of speech and the ability to be alive and the ability to exist without fear should be non-negotiable, yet for Jewish students around the world, these principles seem to be under attack. Why? How does protest has always been democracy's best friend? If we take a look through history, student protests have always been the beginning of change. Take, for example, the French Revolution. But if we take a look through that exact same history book, we realize that Jews were always the warning signs. During the Holocaust, during the Inquisition, during the Russian pogroms. It started with Jews and it evolved to everyone else. If we allow ourselves to hurt one community, to cause fear and shame upon a specific group of people because they are Jews, it won't be long before we allow ourselves to do it to everyone. If today we stay quiet and we let the violence that Jews are facing slide in the name of freedom of speech, we are ignoring a clear sign to the downfall of democracy. But why does this hate persist in the age of endless information? The answer is simple: ignorance. In a world dominated by social media, biased narratives thrived. Pro-Israel posts are flagged and removed daily, while a conflict that affects every single Jew on earth has been reduced to a trending topic. Anti-Semitic outlets, fueled by funding and amplified algorithms, reach millions, preying on the uninformed, those who only skim headlines or believe anything they see on TikTok. These twisted narratives quietly breed hate, dormant cells of anti-Semitism rooted in ignorance, until anger grows so large it erupts into violence. And that's how we end up where we are today. But this isn't just about Jews. At my school, I've heard people say, "Kill all Arabs," or "all Muslims are terrorists." But let's flip the script. How would we react if someone stood here and said, "All Israelis are terrorists," or "Kill all Jews"? We would be outraged. We would call it incitement, hate speech, anti-Semitism, and we'd be right. So why is it any different when the hate is coming from us? The truth is, it's not. And I want to bring to mind the last question I asked. Who here believes they are truly educated enough to defend Jews or Israel if they had to? Raise your hand. Have any of you ever said something like that? Or ever thought about it, about Arabs, Muslims, or any other group? And I want you to reflect within yourselves that if our defense relies on dehumanization, then we are no better than the ones who dehumanize us. I want you to leave today inspired to seek knowledge and to learn more. We, the Jewish youth of today and the leaders of tomorrow, hold the responsibility to fight against ignorance and to make the change, to defend the democracy we are all so convinced we live in, and to see the threat we are facing. When you leave today, I want you to fight for your inheritance, for truth, and for democracy. Thank you. Am Yisrael Chaim.